Is Steve from Minecraft a god? Now, at first glance, that's a pretty easy question. No, he's just a guy. He walks around, does some digging, a bit of fighting, and all around normal stuff. But once you start peeling back the layers, things get a whole lot more interesting. Now, most people know who Steve is. He's that guy that everybody playing for the first time looks like. He quickly became the de facto face behind Minecraft, the hit sandbox game that swept the internet by storm multiple times over. He's even gone so far as to be added to the roster for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Not for nothing, but that means Steve has the ability to absolutely style on YouTube. I'm just saying. Now, while Steve might not look the part of a god, he more than makes up for it in what he can do. First off, he can run a full kilometer in just under 3 minutes, much faster than the normal average of about 5 minutes. And along with being a cross-country champ, Steve has more ups than most NBA players. Steve can jump a bit more than the size of a standard 1 meter cubed Minecraft block, putting his jump height at around 125 centimeters or 49.2 inches. The average jump height of an NBA player is about 71 centimeters or 28 inches, putting Steve right among the likes of Michael Jordan. But we're not calling him a god quite yet. Before we get there, let's see what else he can do. So, let's talk about the things that make Steve pretty much superhuman. Minecraft, like most other games, has you take damage if you fall too far. That fall damage begins at just over 3 blocks. This means that Steve can fall 3.3 meters or 10 feet 10 inches before even noticing it. Now, the farthest Steve can fall before dying is just over 23 blocks, meaning that Steve can fall 23.3 meters or 76 feet 5 inches without going down. Now, I'm not sure about you guys, but I'm pretty sure that I can't jump off a 5-story building and walk it off like it was nothing. When we're talking about godhood, that might not sound like a lot, but how much impact force is really behind that fall? To find that out, the first thing we need is to find out how fast Steve is moving just before he hits the ground. The Minecraft wiki gives us a super helpful formula for figuring this out. Falling from 23 blocks takes 1.27 seconds. Plug in the numbers, and now we know that Steve should be moving at 31.4 meters per second just before impact. If we take that change in speed and divide it by how long it took to hit the ground, we can find that gravitational acceleration in Minecraft is about negative 24.71 meters per second squared. But if we want to know the force that he takes on, we're going to have to do some more digging. Specifically, we need to know how fat Steve is. To figure this one out, we're going to need some census data. So looking at Steve, he stands at about 194 centimeters or 6 foot 4 inches. Using his height, we can calculate his weight around 213 pounds based on average height and weight data provided by the CDC. Converting this over to metric gives us a mass of about 96.6 kilograms. The last two pieces of the puzzle are collision distance and duration. Now, nothing seems to compress at all during this, but we can't assume 0, so we'll use 1 millimeter for calculations. All impacts in Minecraft seem to happen instantaneously, but we'll use 0.1 seconds just to make the math easier. So if we go ahead and use these values, we can determine that Steve hits the ground with a total impact force of 5,490,067 newtons, or 1,234,216 pounds. That's the equivalent of getting into an 150-mile-an-hour car crash with no seatbelt on. Call it a hunch, but I don't think any regular human is going to be able to survive that one. Now, let's look at another one of Steve's superhuman feats, his tolerance for G-forces. With an elytra, Steve can reach some insane speeds. At its maximum, Steve can move at 78.4 meters per second straight down. The crazy part here, though, is how quickly he can go from straight down to straight up. Using firework rockets, Steve can boost his elytra to full speed in a particular direction. It's used as a way to control the glide for transportation. This means that he can go from moving straight downward at nearly 175 miles an hour to moving upward at that exact same speed near instantaneously. Using 0.1 seconds as the time again, we find out that Steve experiences 159.9 Gs when he uses the elytra like this. Humans can generally only handle about 9 Gs before going unconscious, and Steve handles this like it's nothing. I mean, the high G training performed by NASA even only goes up to 20. But still, these things aren't close enough to God tier quite yet. There's one last piece of the puzzle that we can use to put Steve on the path to being a real god. So, like we said earlier, each block in Minecraft is 1 meter cubed, so this means that we can use real-life materials to determine exactly how strong Steve is, or at least how much he can carry. The most dense real-life material that we can find in the game is gold. A cubic meter of gold weighs roughly 45,000 pounds or 19,000 kilograms. While this is insane, there's actually an even heavier material that isn't from real life. Netherite is made up of 4 gold ingots and some netherite scraps. Unfortunately, the scraps have no direct real-life counterpart, but we can get Steve's minimum base power using just the gold part. Assuming a netherite block is made up of at least 4 gold blocks worth of material, we get a minimum weight of 182,000 pounds or 77,000 kilograms. In Minecraft, most items can stack up to 64 in each inventory slot. This means that a full stack of netherite blocks weighs roughly 11.7 million pounds or 4.9 million kilograms. But that's not nearly where this ends. Minecraft has items called shulker boxes, which each provide 3 rows of inventory slots for storage. Filling a single one of these shulker boxes with our netherite blocks would net us a total of 315 million pounds or 133 million kilograms. But we're still not done. We can fill Steve's actual inventory with these boxes. This brings the grand total for the weight that Steve can carry up to 11,342,019,016 pounds, or 4,807,436,240 kilograms. This is an absolutely insane number. This means that Steve can fit just over 561 Eiffel Towers in his back pocket. His pants straight up act like an actual black hole. So, we know that Steve can hold an insane amount of stuff in his pockets, and we know that hitting the ground with nothing can pretty much be just the phrase "send it" personified. The question then is, what would happen if Steve, with 45,000 Statues of Liberty strapped to his back, decided to hit something at high speed? We know that with an Elytra equipped, Steve is able to move downward at a speed of 78.4 meters per second. With this, we can determine that Steve's kinetic energy just before impact with the ground at 78.4 meters per second and 4.8 billion kilograms is roughly 14.7 trillion joules. For comparison, the nuclear bomb Fat Man dropped on Hiroshima during World War II put out roughly 8.8 trillion joules. And that's not even where it ends. That was only the fastest Steve could go downward. It's possible to go even faster using a few other effects that Steve has in his toolkit. Using boots equipped with the enchantments Depth Strider 3 and Soul Speed 3 while swimming on top of a layer of soul sand can increase Steve's speed dramatically. Adding the potion effect Speed 2 and the mob effect Dolphin's Grace makes it possible for Steve to swim at an astounding 144 meters per second or 322 miles an hour. Exchanging the previous 78.4 meters per second with this new figure brings our kinetic energy just before impacting the wall to 49,843,478 joules, or about 5.6 times larger than the Fat Man. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what makes Steve one of the most powerful characters in popular gaming. Not just because he can harness these levels of destructive energy, but because he survives doing it. When flying downwards, Steve can use enchanted armor, potions, and a hay bale to successfully survive the impact. And when Steve is swimming, he takes no damage from impacts with the walls. He can do this over and over and over again without even thinking about it. And all of this is just for the current version of Minecraft. Previous versions included a crafting recipe for enchanted golden apples that used 8 golden blocks. The fact that this can all, in theory, be done in survival Minecraft makes Steve quite the force to be reckoned with. But it all comes back to the big question: is Steve from Minecraft a god? When all's said and done, the answer is still most likely no. As powerful as someone who can create the energy of nuclear blasts on a whim may be, that doesn't inherently make them a god. Generally, a god has some level of omnipotence, knowing everything there is to know about their world. And sure, you might be able to say that the player can know everything there is about Minecraft, but ultimately, Steve himself is just mimicking what the player tells him to do, working as an agent of destruction towards the whims of a kid playing a video game. And that only produces yet another question. In this eternal game of puppet and puppeteer, are you truly the god? Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and all the other generic YouTuber things I'm supposed to say. I know we didn't touch on creative mode at all here, but that's honestly because of course Steve is a god in creative. He makes stuff out of thin air and flies. But anyway, thanks for sticking around, and I'll catch you guys next time.